How's she going, my son? And welcome to another little Warframe video before I get back into the what you might call the main grind of my channel at the moment, being Doki Doki Literature Club. I might do some Slay the Spire today too, because I just got that game, and oh my god, it is awesome. But anyway, on to the game we're playing at the moment, Warframe. Now, after talking about damage 2.5, I thought, what other system in Warframe could use a 0.5 upgrade, or even a 3.0? Because this might be a bit more, extreme than a mere 0.5 can cover. And that is modding. Actually, we'll start with weapons, because they're a little simpler to understand. Alright, so, basic idea with mods, as it is regardless of what level the item is, regardless of what doodad you put into it, be it a potato, or as many forma as you put into it, or lenses, or whatever, the game will... You are hard limited to 8 different mods. It doesn't matter if they're 8 prime mods, if they're 8, like, common mods, doesn't matter. Like, you know, I could load this sucker up with all these rares I got, and it would be just the same as if I loaded. It would use up the same amount of real estate, if you will, as, you know, a bunch of unleveled jank. Well, that's the stuff I just took off. Hang on. Yep. Just as much as a bunch of unleveled, broken jank that just happens to be the same mod. You know, to give you an idea. You know, like, as far as the game is concerned, this is a fully fledged weapon as much as this is. But the biggest problem here is that we have an issue of availability and viability in terms of mods. The problem being, you can't... What is it? You can't mod for almost anything other than damage. And I know what you're thinking, but Mike, it's a weapon, that's what it does. This is true. But there's plenty of mods out there that don't directly affect damage, or directly affect damage, because even something like a fire rate mod does improve the damage over time, or DPS of the weapon. It doesn't make each bullet technically do more damage. And of course then there's mods like... Go away, Lotus. But there's even mods like, you know, punch-through mods. They don't do anything for your damage unless you're hitting multiple targets, in which case your total DPS, as much as I kind of really don't care about that number, you know, goes up, right? But, like, where in a build can I fit something like tactical reload here? You know, regain ammunition in the clip when I don't have it installed, when I don't have the weapon out. That's a PvP mod they made universal, by the way, if you're wondering. How about if I want to fit, like, a bunch of set mods in? Like, you know, I mean, people use Hunter's Munitions anyway, because it's really good. But, like, what if I wanted to put a bunch of set mods in? Is there any other Hunter ones that go with this? No. But, like, let's say if I wanted a Hunter set mod, Vigilante mod, and I think, yeah, there's Gladiator is melee, so, like, that's 4 of my weapon slots, 4 of my mod slots already. But you see, here's the problem. Let's say I'm actually trying to properly mod a weapon. You know, so I have a Riven for this. This is my Grinlock. This is my baby. But, you know, I have a Riven, so that's taking up a slot as well. But, you know, it's in no way mandatory, because obviously they're all very different, and they're all basically special Snowflake mods. But, you know, it's another possibility that's getting choked up by the mandatory mod slots. For example, not a melee weapon, sorry, primary weapon has to have the full rank serration, has to have the full rank split chamber. These days, I wouldn't call it a have to, but it's still a very good thing to have a full vigilante armaments, because that makes the multi-shot go from 90 to 150, meaning always firing 2 shots, sometimes firing 3, like half the time also firing 3 shots. out of one click. That's pretty good. I wouldn't call Primed Shred, or even just regular Shred, a mandatory mod, but... Okay, what I will call a mandatory mod, because this is a weapon you have to make for crit, you have to put the Point Strike in there. You have to put the Vital Sense in there. Look at this. I'm already at 6 of my 8 mods slots consumed. And this weapon has a exclusive... Where is it? It has an exclusive, like, to it mod as well. And, you know, so if I want to use that, I already don't have the ability to make an elemental combo. Like, I literally can't. I don't have enough room on the weapon. Where is it? No, I literally cannot make this weapon have a proper elemental combo anymore. Unless my Riven had an element on it, which mine doesn't. No deadly sequence to get it up to the critical chance I like, which is the 101%. And I mean, this is an instance where Hunter's Munitions is pretty decent because of my lack of elemental damage. I think I might as well go, well, I literally get a 30% chance of always inflicting a slash proc. And since I'm firing 3 shots anyway, that ends up being somewhere in the ballpark of like 50%. Because I get to roll 30% upwards of 3 times. But, you know, at this point, my mod slots are full. Admittedly, I have no capacity left anyway. But if any of these mods were even remotely cheaper, I would have a bunch of capacity I can't do anything with. So here's what I'm thinking. Step 1, you have 2 less mod slots. Now, I know what you're thinking. Michael, what the hell? That's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. Let me finish. You have 6 mod slots, but each weapon has 2 different mod windows. The first window is the window that would affect your actual damage. So it would be, I'm thinking calling it the ammo slot, because, I mean, if you're modifying your ammunition, you're doing more damage with your weapon. Makes sense to me. So, you know, this is where you put your base damage. This is where you put your multi-shot. So, why is it only showing me Fervor? Oh, because I'm on Moderai. Derp. That's why. You know, this is where you put your damage. This is where you put your multi-shot. This is where you put... I wouldn't put the critical... I would put the critical damage here, I think. Put the critical damage here. And this is where you would put your elementals. So, like, if I want to do corrosive damage, since it's the hot shit, you know, bam. Corrosive damage. Now, that's my 6 slots used up, but I have another 6 slots that I can use for, I guess you'd call it the stock of the gun, or the body of the gun. Like, I'm not, you know, I don't have an idea of what to call this spot specifically, but, you know, this is the slot where you get to put on the stuff that affects the other stats of the gun. For example, punch through and fire rate. You know, the fire rate isn't affected by the ammo of the weapon, it's affected by the mechanics of the gun. So this is, and the velocity of the gun, well, I'm no 100% expert when it comes to guns, but, like, in literal guns, but a lot of the mechanics of the gun, well, I don't know, punch through is a bit iffy. It could be on the damage slot, it could be on the barrel or the body, whatever you want to call it. I think it would be on the body, though, just because it's a stat that does not directly affect damage, even if that's not how guns really work. Just because that's kind of what I'm trying to fix here. Then you put your crit strike chance there. So your fire rate, your crit strike chance, probably things like status duration, maybe? Like, you know, this thing needs some work in terms of exactly what you do with it. Or in terms of exactly where each mod that's currently in the game goes. Because, like, this would be easier to design, obviously, if they were starting from scratch. But they don't want to start from scratch because that invalidates everyone's work with their mods before. But if you don't start from scratch and instead start partway through, you kind of have to, like, adapt everything. So it gets a little mudded. Riven mods in particular, I almost think it would be that the Riven mod would roll what slots it takes up. So, like, it could take up your ammo slot, or it could take up your, or it could take up the body slot of in your gun. Or be a mod in the body slots of your gun. So you end up with, you know, you might end up with and like, you'd still only be able to use one Riven, though, because obviously these things can get really powerful. Particularly with a gun with a really high disposition. But, you know, like, this one would probably be a body gridlock mod, because it affects nothing but the body stats. Actually, in fact, that would be an easy way to determine where it goes, is what stats does it affect, right? That would make Rivens need more rolls to get the God Riven, but I mean, it's a random thing. You're playing with dice anyway. Why not roll more? Oh, and idle side note for the weapons in particular, the dual stat mods. I would still, even though these affect status chance, which is a thing you'd probably put on the body of your gun, I would still put these specifically in the ammo of the gun. That's the part where you modify your damage. Because if you don't, all that's going to happen is the body of the gun will always be filled with 4 of these, like 2 sets of elemental combos. You know, like, it would always just be filled with 4 of these and then 2 others, which is kind of defeating the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. Like, what I want to do is make it like base stat mod, crit damage mod if you're playing crit damage, elements, or like probably like Hunter's Munition would be in here or something, you know, like that kind of logic. For melee weapons, it would be basically the same, the difference being the you'd call it like the strike or the blade, you know, depending on what kind of weapon it is, would be where the damage goes, the base damage and such. And then like the hilt would probably be where like you put like your combo mod stuff, your attack speed stuff. I don't know where you'd put something like Healing Return or Life Strike, though. I think channeling mods might go in the hilt, even if they affect damage, I think. Because it makes sense where like the mechanics of the thing would be, versus, you know, the actual business end of your weapon being affected by it. Although I don't know. It's an unknown variable I haven't quite played with this idea of mine, but I think it would work. You know, basically you go up to 12 slots, but each 2 sets of 6 have restrictions on what mods you put in them. That's about the long and short of it. Now, companions, they would probably work the same. You'd have mods that affect their damage, then probably like mods that affect their damage and the mods that are their abilities, like Dig for Dogmeat here, and then the other set is mods that affect their health and mods that like give them buffs, like these ones, Pack Hunter, the Medical Ped Kit that gives them the longer time before they you know, die when they're knocked down, that kind of thing. And as for the Warframe, it's gonna be a little different. You'll still have the Exilus, and the Exilus I think can stay as it is even in this model, because the way the Exilus slots work is that they're a little gimme. Now, unfortunately, some of them have been slightly contaminated with, you know, raw functionality, like Power Drift, Colocation Drift. Although, admittedly, this is an effect that's unique to an Exilus slot, so that's kind of okay, too. But, like, the drifts in particular are big offenders of this. But, like, you know, they're not... The amount of benefit you get from them isn't super big compared to...
Tenno, there's a time-limited mission alert available. Check navigation.
I don't care, Lotus. I'm doing a thing. But, like... You know, Cunning Drift is weaker than MacLeod, but it gives the ability range instead of the 30% slide. I mean, they stack and it's hilarious, but, you know, something different. But what I'm thinking with Warframes is you have 2 sets of mod slots. Actually, no. No, what I was gonna do with Warframes actually is something a little different. You might keep 8 slots, you might go down to 6, I'm not sure which. Probably 6, just for the sake of this not being a direct power creep, but I mean, it's gonna be a bit power creepy. But, power creepy. Might be a new term. The term when somebody gets a lot of power, you know, like they ate something bigger than their head in terms of power, and, you know, their whole, they, you know, very strangely rub it in your face, I guess. I don't know. Take of that what you will. But what I'm thinking is that with Warframes, the biggest issue is if you want to mod for a lot of durability on your Warframe, like, for example, my Excalibur, which has far too many Ds, you know, you want to do something like that. You want to have Hunter Adrenaline on for rage conversion. You want to have, let's see, like, you want to put Prime Vigor on there for even more health. And, like, you know, let's say you want to also improve the shield. You know, at this point, that there, you know, like, put that in for even more health. And then, you know, if you wanted to try to put a Prime Flow in, admittedly, this would need more Forma, but, you know, like, if I wanted to go for, like, maximum durability, I've done nothing to the Warframe's abilities. Whereas if I want to make the Warframe's abilities badass, I'm doing so at the, like, complete expense of my durability. Like, I'm okay with, you know, squishy casters being squishy casters, but the binary of squishy caster compared to durable melee character is a little, like, crazy. Like, if I wanted to do something like this, have lots of duration, lots of power strength, you know, lots of efficiency. Like, you know, if I go really all in on this, I end up with, well, a very confused Excalibur, but I end up with a build that has no room for anything, like, for any actual survivability. This Excalibur will be knocked over in a stiff breeze, particularly in content that's like level 70 plus. You know, he'll fall over in a stiff breeze and be a burden on the team, or just, you know, not be able to do the mission solo because you'll just keep dying. So what I'm thinking is, let's do the model where you have 6 slots for your Warframe's durability. So, like, for example, 6 slots for your Warframe's durability. Vitality, Quick Thinking, Prime Flow. That's a nice chunk of health. I also want to have Prime Vigor, because that's also a health increase, and it's a shield increase. And Gladiator's Resolve, let's say. So, like, maximum health possible on an Excalibur. 1,140. These slots have nothing to do... No, that's only 5. Ooh. I theoretically could fit more into this theoretical build. I'd probably put the energy gain on damage taken, you know, Rage and Hunter's Adrenaline. They would probably go into the survivability slot, just because it's something that has to do with your Warframe's health. And your Warframe's health and energy stats, which is where Prime Flow would go. Your armor ones would go here as well. Probably your sprint mods would go in here too, if you're not just using one in the Excella slot. And I mean, yeah, this, like, a lot of the mods would go into these slots, so it would be a little tight for space. But, like, for example, if I didn't really care about having the absolute maximum health, and I maybe wanted to, I don't know, prevent some damage of a certain type, I'd actually be able to do that. Look at that, I could actually put heat resistance in a build. Or if I'm, like, more shield based, I could be like fast deflection and where's that other one? Vigilante Vigor. My shields recharge 150% faster. You know, like that. Although, why is a Valkyrie pictured, or Valkyr pictured in this mod? She does not do shields. She is the worst Warframe with shields at shields. Because the only Warframes that are worse at shields are the 2 that don't have one. Nidus and Inaros. You know, so you have this setup. But then when you're setting up your abilities, now here's the cool part. I think each ability should have its own mod screen. Now, this would mean people need more mods, and particularly more copies of mods, which could get a little dicey with things like primed continuity and primed, well, whatever primed mods they release in the future. I heard Prime Streamline is the thing in the future, so that's going to be kind of cool. But, you know, you would have to have multiple copies of them, or like if you want to do multiple copies of things like Transient Fortitude and the other corrupted mods, you'd have to go farm a bunch of them. But I mean, it's Warframe, you farm for shit all the time. But, you know, like the biggest example being, this would actually solve another problem of the inability to mod for multiple abilities on some frames, and have your abilities actually do different things rather than having the abilities, having like 2 awesome abilities because of the way you modded, and then 2 abilities that literally don't work because you've like nerfed them to the ground. Like, for example, let's say you're just building for Exalted Blade. You will probably tank your range for duration because it makes it last longer, right? So you put Narrow-Minded in your build, all of a sudden your range is really low, and then, you know, the range on all of your abilities suffers. But it makes, well, Radial Blind lasts longer, but if you manage to catch somebody in it, and then Exalted Blade's energy drain per second is only like half as, like, is significantly less, like, yeah, half as much. So, you know, but at the expense of 3 of his 4 abilities. With this system, you would need more copies of Narrow-Minded if you wanted to narrow-mind your other abilities. But if you didn't want to narrow-mind your other 3 abilities, you would have the ability to narrow-mind your Exalted Blade as Excalibur, and then still keep the, like, 25 range on Javelins, 25 range on Blind, and the 12 range on Slash Dash. And then you could also be like, I want to make Slash Dash make me go absolutely everywhere super fast. You could, let's see, range. You know, put Overextend on it, put Cunning Drift on it, put Augur Reach on it, put Stretch on it, like, just absolutely max out the range. And then, like, your last 2 slots are for efficiency, because you still have to pay for the efficiency of each ability individually. So, you know, you end up with Slash Dash that goes 33.6 meters in the invisible cone that it generates to determine what you hit and how far you go. You know, so every 1 tap of that, and then, like, if you maxed out the efficiency on it, you end up going, you know, 30 some odd meters very quickly, I might add, in like 1 button press very quickly. And it's like, you know, but like if I did this with the way the mod system is now and I tried to set up for any other ability, for one thing, I'm doing no goddamn damage. My strength is as low as it gets in this game. You know, my strength is as low as it gets in this game. My duration is also shit. So all I really have is a very far Slash Dash, a very far Radial Blind that doesn't last worth a shit, a very far Radial Javelin that doesn't do damage worth a shit, and an Exalted Blade that lasts forever but has really shitty base damage, like to the point where my own melee weapon is probably going to do more than the Exalted Blade anyway. You know, and in this system I'm also tanking the ever-living shit out of my durability to do this as well. So, you know, that's the long and short of it of, we need more mod slots, but not just bulk more mod slots. We need to have mod slots with some restrictions, but we need more of them to cover specific categories of what our Warframes and weapons do. At least what I think.
How's she going? Future Mike here. Just wanted to add in something after I realized in editing I had missed it. 1, augment mods would go in their respective ability, bit of a no-brainer. And 2, with the abilities being moddable separately, I like the idea of adding elemental damage to your mods, maybe not adding as much raw damage as the elemental weapons do to guns, but letting you flavor specifically elemental abilities. For example, adding cold to a Ember's fire ability, or any of them, and making them explosion abilities instead. You know, allowing you to use a Warframe that has a certain functionality, but is tied to one of the elemental systems, meaning against certain foes, they are not as capable as they should be, or at least could be, if with the system where, you know, for example, let's just take Ember again, let's add some corrosion damage to her. All of a sudden, she can deal with armored targets a lot better. Just a thought, but hey, I wanted to edit it in, but I forgot to in the main video. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Also, I wouldn't mind if we could mod the operator. Now, I know the point of the operator is that they level up with the focus school. You know, you put your points in here. You have the waybound ones, which give you the passive, like, good stuff for all the trees. And then when you unbind them, you literally make it so they can be used in any tree. You know, you get the ones you get them over here, so that, you know, my operator always has like 600 health and is always regenerating for a health-ish a second. Whereas, you know, normally if you're in one of these other trees instead of Raziren, you're not getting that health bonus. But, you know, at the end of the day, the operator system becomes stagnant, because if you get everything... Yeah, I intentionally wiggled the mouse to do... As if I was, like, spreading my arms. You know, if you get everything in the school, which, I mean, takes a while. Someone did the math in the old system. It took, like, a year of grinding, assuming you don't get any other focus from other than the 250,000 a day. Probably less now, because you don't need as much for this nonsense. But, you know, if you got everything, your operator will be exactly the same as somebody else's operator. Now, you also have the arcanes that you put into their customizations. You know, like the arcanes that you put into their customizations, and that's fine. But, I mean, Warframes and their cosmetics have that too. Oh, geez, you're happy. Boop. You know, like, they already have... They have the arcane system as well. I think operators need a mod system as well. Make it that, you know, like... Do it that, like, you can't mod your operator until you have the amp, because before that, your operator is kind of like a civilian with a useful skill, whereas once you get the amp, your operator becomes a proper operative on the battlefield. At least when you're fighting, like, Eidolons and stuff, and sentients. But, you know, like, we need something for the operator as well, and I think having, like, 6 slots to give them some mods would be a good idea, even if it means they have to do like a new set of mods, because I think it would be appropriate if they made mods that are specific to the operators. You know, even if some of them are overlapping with, you know, like the basic mods like Vitality and stuff, because, well, it gives us more to do. You know, so we can't just slap on our already leveled Vitality onto our operator once they open up the slot. We could actually have to need some more time to grind and stuff. But anyway, that's my little rant / suggestion piece on modding and what modding 2.5 or even 3.0 might look like in the future. And, I mean, obviously, I'm not holding my breath that they're going to do this exactly as I say, but something to this effect I think would be a very good idea because of the, well, increased usability of more mods. Because other than some mods just being absolute hot garbage in terms of what they actually do. Okay, so the... like, for example, well, I can't say those are bad. That's not bad. And Reflection's fun to play with, but, like, to give you an idea... Where is it? Like this mod, Shock Absorbers. When you're knocked down, you block... You know, I'm gonna level it. I actually don't know... Oops. I actually don't know how much it blocks on full... when fully modded. I mean, I won't spend the points, but I'll just do this. Yeah, you get 20% damage resistance on knockdown. Like, I'm sure the math on that is actually probably pretty good, but... Well, one, it's probably better to mod for anti-knockdown... either knockdown immunity, like modding for Constitution and Handspring, you know, so you get up off the ground twice as fast, or Fortitude and Power Drift, meaning you don't get knocked down half the time in the first place, like your character just does a like parry animation instead. You know, so Shock Absorbers is kind of like a moot point, but
Tenno, a new alert has begun. It will be marked on navigation.
A fully, like, serviceable mod isn't getting use in this environment because there's no room for it over the, like, the air quotes mandatory mods. Like, even the like, this particularly became a problem when the set mods came out, because the set mods are designed to be worse than the mod they're similar to. Like, this is worse than Vitality maxed out, although it's cheaper. But it also gives you the critical chance thing for your melee weapons, which is cool. And since you also stack your Aegis, you stack your Gladiator stuff, you get that benefit more times. But at the same time, you don't really have that many slots to play with because you have all these mandatory mods that, quite frankly, when you're at higher level content, you kind of need to use. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with needing quality at higher level content, but I think quality shouldn't just be these mods over these mods. Rather, it should be, have you got your mods fully leveled, and are you putting them together in a clever combination? That's what I think, anyway. But in any event, thank you all so much for watching. Twitter, Tumblr, and subscription are in the description as usual. Click on like if you like what you saw and you want to have other people see it. And click on subscribe if you want to see more of my content. And when subscribing to anyone, particularly myself, click on the bell so that YouTube reminds you of where to remind you that we still exist. And also check your subscriptions feed on the YouTube homepage, because sometimes even when you click the bell, it doesn't always work. And yeah, but that's about it. Damn it, theoretical mods 2.5/3.0. In short, we need more slots, but with restrictions, so that it isn't just a straight up, you know, gimme, gimme, gimme. Because this is admittedly a bit of a gimme, 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 but at the same time, I'm willing to be reasonable. Because we need more slots, but just don't give us more slots raw, because that's just going to be broken. Thanks so much for watching, and ciao for now.